what's up you guys, Century Productions here, and welcome to the Watchtower series. This episode is going to be devoted to two custom figures that a good buddy of mine, Todd, aka Rectangular, created. And basically he reached out to me and asked me, hey, do you want to take pictures of these? And I was like, hell yeah, I think these figures are badass, these two customs. Both Iron Man armors. And I think Todd did a really good job with both of these figures, and I can't wait to get them in hand. If you guys have been following the Marvel Legends community, the ACBA community, the toy community for a long time, you guys know who Rectangular is, does the Marvel Legends leaks, custom showcases, and he created this Model 44 Hulkbuster here, and of course he created this Model 6 Iron Man deep sea armor, basically made customs from scratch. He put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into these, and you can really see it in the final product, especially these pictures, these snippets right here from Todd's video where he does an overview of how he created the figure. So make sure to go down in the description and check out both of those reviews. Very informative, and I think you learn a lot, and maybe you can make this figure on your own if you wanted to. But I just wanted to thank Todd for reaching out to me. Like I said, I've known Todd for a very long time. I just think it's really cool he reached out and wanted me to take pictures of these. And I don't get to keep them, but if I get to take pictures of them, that's just as good. And I can't wait to get my hands on both of these. So let's just jump right into it and take these shots, man. Alright, so I'm starting off these shots with the Hulkbuster shot, of course using the figures that Todd lent me. Both really great figures. I want to be very careful with these figures, but as you can see, this is going to be the first portion of the shot. I'm doing a panel shot, and the Hulkbuster is going to be the second panel. I'll show you guys that here in a second. I haven't even set that up yet. This kind of just came to me when I was kind of looking through comics, trying to get ideas for the Hulkbuster. And you know, this Hulkbuster figure's only really shown up in like 4 or 5 comics, so I really had to try to find something that made sense. So I decided I'm going to go with an armory shot, but that's going to be in the second panel that I haven't set up yet. But basically we just got Tony talking to Jim right here, just kind of setting everything up. I have the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Luke Cage as the body for the Jim Rhodes here, James Rhodes, War Machine, whatever you like to call him, Rhodey. And I've been using this little kit bash for years now. This has never been a Luke Cage for me. This has always been a James Rhodes custom or kit bash. So I love pulling this figure out and shooting something with it. The skin tones don't match exactly, but you know, you'd really have to be looking for that. Then of course I'm using the Bruce Banner body for this Tony Stark with the head that came with the 80th anniversary Iron Man, I believe. And then this actual speech bubble, I think I just ripped it from a comic, and then I found a cool font, digital script, I believe, very close to how DC and Marvel's text. You know, there's different text all throughout comics, but this one reminds me a lot of Marvel, so I decided to just kind of erase all the text that was initially in there and then put my own text in there. So this is 100% my text that I put in there. Don't worry, Jim, I put pretty much every weapon I have into this armor. They don't stand a chance. And then the next panel, you'll see what I'm cooking up here. But not really much going into this shot. I have this background back here. This came with the Marvel Legends AIM 2-pack back in the day. You know, they don't really make the box art quite like they used to, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. It's just kind of like a generic lab setup, and always looks good when you have it in the background. You know, we're going to be shooting the armory here, so I felt like this kind of fits. So this is basically the whole shot. Got 2 lights kind of right here, looking at both of these figures. I have a LED desk lamp that's holding up the cutout, so this of course is going to be all tangible. So let's check out this next panel. Alright, so here we have the second panel, or the main portion of our shot here. We'll take the other shot we initially took and kind of squeeze it in to this shot here. I did shoot this portrait mode, but just for the sake of video, I put it landscape so you guys could see this a little bit better. I'm using the Disney Toy Box Hall of Armor set. I know Todd has a bunch of these sets, and his Iron Man setup is like way crazier than mine. I only have 3 sets. I think he has like 7 or 8 sets, and he has way more Iron Man figures than I do. But I have the main guys here. I always love pulling out this this little Disney Toy Box Hall of Armor set and kind of putting my favorite armors in, and it's always kind of fun. And of course we got the Hulkbuster here that Todd put together and painted. Obviously we're using the Ironmonger MCU Buck, which was one of my favorite figures from 2021, and obviously he repainted it, added some parts, more guns, and I gotta say, man, Todd did a really amazing job with this figure. I have to be very careful with it because Todd didn't use any sealer for this, because he thought that it was gonna mess with the shininess of the paint. And I have to say that this is definitely like one of the most chromed out, shiniest figures that I've taken a shot of, and you can really see that translated pretty well into the shot, I think. So I think he made the right call with that. I just can't say how much I like this figure. It's so cool. So let's talk about this armor a little bit. This armor is from Iron Man Volume 5, number 4. I think it was the first appearance. It's on the Iron Man Armory website or fandom website. This is labeled as Model 44. It's kind of like an all-out Hulkbuster kind of armor. It's got every weapon thrown in it, and he just murders a bunch of people in like 4 or 5 issues, I think. He hasn't really donned it since then. I think it maybe has appeared in the background of maybe a comic or two, but obviously we left a little bit of space up top. That's where our first initial shot's gonna go. We're gonna basically just panel it up in post. And I think it's going to be really cool. So this is my first initial shot of this Hulkbuster figure. I really like it. Trying to be really careful. I've been kind of worried that all these this set right here is going to fall forward onto this figure. I just really don't want that to happen. So while I'm ahead and I got the shot and everything, I'm going to get him out of the way. Then kind of break this down a little bit. I think for my next shot, I'm still going to use this Armory set, and then I think I'll call it quits after that, because I don't want all of my shots to just be, you know, just these Iron Man figures in the Armory. I want to, do maybe an underwater shot, maybe an action shot. We'll see. I haven't completely planned it out just yet, but so far I think this figure is awesome, and I want one of my own. Todd, make me one, please. He won't. There's way too much work that went into this, but anyways, let's check this out. Alright, so I'm on the table with the other custom that Todd gave me. This, of course, is the iconic Model 6 armor. I got that from the fandom page, and of course the Iron Manual that basically goes over all the armors and assigns them a model number. So this is Model 6. This is the Deep Sea armor, which has been dubbed by Tony himself. This armor has really only appeared in one comic, that was Iron Man 218. Basically, that story just kind of follows Tony creating this suit. They find the wreckage of the Titanic and realize that around the wreckage, someone has placed this canister at the bottom of the ocean, which is going to threaten the ocean and threaten the world. So Tony creates this suit, which, like I said, he dubs the Deep Sea armor. And he basically goes down there to retrieve the canister and put it in his little backpack, which he's kind of sitting on, or he's laying on right here. But of course, in classic Iron Man fashion, he runs into some trouble underwater, and he gets to utilize this suit. And I just really enjoyed reading that. Of course, Iron Man at the end saves the day. And I love the art, specifically from like issues, I'd say 120 to probably 300. I just absolutely love that art with Iron Man. And that was basically the only issue he's ever really been in, or at least he's used this suit in. Every other appearance of this suit has just usually been a cameo, either in the Armory or sometimes at his underwater base. But it's kind of funny because this is such an iconic look for Iron Man. Everybody knows this look, as it being the Hydro armor, the Deep Sea armor, whatever you want to call it. So Todd lent me this figure. It's an outstanding custom. I think the base he's using is one of the McFarlane Warhammer figures right here, but he's actually sculpted quite a bit of stuff on here to kind of replicate how this armor looks in the comics. And when he sent it to me, the dome piece that he had put in the package unfortunately shattered. I don't know if the UPS person was having a bad day or not, but until recently he actually sent me a replacement. But while I was waiting for that, I figured, you know what, I still got the figure. Maybe I can create a scene around this dome being shattered. So that's what I've done here. I've basically taken the armor setup from the last shot, put some Iron Men in it, had a couple of them fall on the ground in different kind of poses, added some steel beams, like maybe somebody has come in and sabotaged the armory. In the comics, Tony's Iron Man armory, it is constantly getting broken into. He's getting suits stolen. Suits are being sold to other buyers. There's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens in his Hall of Armor until I believe more recently he just destroyed all of his suits. Actually, I think it happened quite a long time ago, but he destroyed all his suits because he was just having such a hard time with people stealing them or trying to get the technology, so he just ended up destroying all of them, kind of like how we saw in Iron Man 3. And so I kind of built a scene around that. I'm using a little cutout back here with some smoke. There's various armors on the ground. Of course, I wanted to highlight the stealth suit right here. We've got the pieces of the broken dome right here. We have a steel beam in the back with the Iron Man kind of falling over. So it was kind of a fun little idea that I had spur of the moment. I have to kind of work with a high f-stop in order to kind of get some of those details that are more specifically in the background in camera. But the focal point is going to be the custom here by Todd, with the broken dome. I just thought it was kind of a cool idea. Overall I really enjoyed kind of throwing this setup together. And it was kind of interesting kind of posing the armor. I initially wanted to put Spy Master in here, but I just kind of had too much going on with this shot, and I just didn't want to add another element to it. It'd be like kind of take the focus away from the Model 6 armor here, and you'd be looking in the back at all this stuff, and it was just a little bit too much. So I decided to just go with like a plain old, somebody broke in, somebody blew it up, something happened in the armory, and we're kind of using the Model 6 as the focal point. And then real quick, I wanted to show that I am still being very careful with this custom. I don't want to move it too much. You move the limbs, paint chips. It's a custom, and it's not my custom. So I'm kind of trying to work ideas out around the fact that I'm not trying to move the figure. So I do have him laying on some plastic bags, if you guys can tell, because the paint does not have any sealer on it, just because it kind of affects the color. So I'm trying to do my best to preserve this the best I can. But let's check out another angle of this. So real quick, there's not really much more to say here, but I'll kind of just show you this angle, kind of like some of the movie magic here. Of course, we got the cutout in the back. Got all the glass pieces on the ground right here. I threw the steel beam just to kind of show up in the foreground. There's other details that you can't really see, such as this Iron Man right here. I believe that's the Bleeding Edge Iron Man falling on the ground. He kind of just disappears behind the Model 6. And then of course I also put a couple details up here, such as like various armors like being out of their spots, maybe have fallen on the ground, but you really only see the bottom part of the armory. And then of course, in classic Sentry fashion, we have the Silver Centurion armor right there. Nothing has happened to this armor because, as we all know, it is the greatest Iron Man armor of all time. And I would never dare to make anything bad happen to this armor, because it's my favorite. Anyways, that's the whole shot. So far I'm loving this custom, and I have a couple more ideas that I'm going to try to get to either today or tomorrow. Alright, continuing the Iron Man shots. Got the Model 6 all set up with a bunch of the other armors. The last two shots, I've used the Disney Toy Box Hall of Armor playset. And there's a bunch of different ways Tony has displayed his suits in the comics. So I went ahead and pulled the Hall of Armor set to the side and went with something a little bit different. I'll let you guys see the reference photo that I got this idea from. Initially, these little circular yellow things on the ground were actually lights from the reference photo. And what I did here is I just took yellow construction paper, took a glass, made a bunch of circles obviously, and then just cut them out with scissors. And I think it adds a really cool little accent to this little armory display right here. I really like how this looks. It's got a really nice contrast with the black background, the black floors, and then you've got these little yellow circles, kind of matches that red and yellow Iron Man theme. Of course, we're highlighting the Model 6, which I finally got this thing sat upright, and I'm using the Morbius body with the 20th year Toy Biz Tony Stark head. God, that was a mouthful. And I just kind of kit bashed that together. This is probably my favorite suited body that I've been playing around with lately. And it kind of matches that kind of late 70s, early 80s kind of Tony Stark head sculpt. Or maybe it's like, I guess, early 70s. I really enjoyed kind of setting all this up, kind of spacing out the little yellow circles. They're not really supposed to look like light in the actual shot. I just, like I said, thought they were cool little accents. If you look at the framing I have right here, other than maybe this, the new Alex Ross Iron Man suit, these are all pretty much the most classic Iron Man suits. We got modular Iron Man. We have Thor Buster. I was finally able to throw Thor Buster in there. He doesn't actually fit in the Hall of Armor playset, so I was able to kind of just throw him on one of the little yellow circles here. I kind of wanted to mix it up and throw a couple armors in that I don't normally use, so that's why the Thor Buster is in there. But I generally kind of gravitate towards the classic Iron Man suits. So you'll see a lot of like Model 3s in there. They've reused that body several times. The focal point is Tony looking at the deep sea armor here, Model 6, Hydro armor, whatever you want to call it. Initially I had a cutout that was on the Tony figure, and it was basically him looking at the suit and kind of going, oh man, back in the day we used to have a lot of fun. But the issue I kind of ran into shooting this was I couldn't get enough light on the cutout to really bring the white of the speech bubble out, and at the same time it was creating like this unbelievable glare on the glass dome. So as you can see, we kind of have the glass dome that's in one piece. Thanks again to Todd for sending this over as quickly as he could so I could get to shooting with this. But what I've noticed, it's actually glass. What I've noticed with that is it causes all kinds of reflections. I've never really shot anything with a glass piece. I shoot using the glass technique all the time, but the idea behind that is to make it translucent. It's kind of like stuck right there on the figure, so there's not really anything you can do to get rid of those reflections on the glass. So I kind of strategically set up my lights in a way to where I didn't have any of the reflections directly on his faceplate. You will see some of those reflections on the dome, of course. Like I said, there's not really anything I could do, but I couldn't use the speech bubble because me putting too much direct light on it was causing an even larger glare than there already is showing on it right now. This is a very different and interesting way of displaying the Hall of Armor, and I have to say, this might be my new favorite way to display it. And it's also a hell of a lot cheaper than buying the Hall of Armor playsets, but you can't really display this on your shelf like this. This is mainly just for a shot, but I just love the colors here, man. Lots of reds, golds. I was able to sneak in the stealth suit on the left, got the War Machine armor on the right, got the classic armor in the back, Thor Buster, and even another classic armor in the back left, and then modular up front, and then I had to. Got Silver Centurion right up front, right where he belongs. So this was a really, really cool shot that I really enjoyed setting up. Alright, this was a little last minute idea I had. I remember years ago I saw a Namor shot that was almost identical to this, of him kind of breaching the surface of the water, and I was like, you know what, I think I have everything I would need to make that happen. So I decided to just kind of run with it and do that idea. I forget who took that initial shot, but it was really awesome. I actually couldn't even find that shot either, but this is basically it. We got the sky background, we've got this like blue saran wrap, plastic wrap, whatever you want to call it. I got on Amazon, I think I looked up blue plastic wrap or something like that and found this, and it works really nice for a water line. This is actually 3 different sheets of it just kind of stacked on top of each other, just because one sheet you could kind of see underneath the surface of it. So with 3 of those stacked together, It's kind of harder to see underneath it because I didn't want you to see the bottom of his suit. And then I just basically have some stuff kind of holding up this plastic right here. Maybe you guys can see a little bit underneath. I don't plan on showing you guys another angle of this, so there's just various stands kind of holding it up. I mean, it weighs like next to nothing, so it kind of works out pretty well, and you can kind of play around with the position of the stands to maybe create like waves and stuff like that. That's kind of what I have going on in the top right. It's kind of cool, and most of this will be blurred out. Working with all kinds of different lights. I know I kind of mentioned this, but this figure, as much as I love this figure, it's kind of like doing action figure photography on hard mode, because this glass bowl, I mean, it's impossible to not get a reflection in it, and it's hard to get the face fully in focus without having a reflection that's covering his eye holes or his mouth. As you can see, I have this light right here, the Ulanzi color LED, and you can see that glare. You can just see it no matter where I put it. It's always very prominent right in his little helmet bubble right there. So you kind of have to situate it in a way to where it's not obstructing his faceplate, but regardless what you do, it's gonna be there. And each time I've shot this figure, with the exception of the one where the glass dome was broken, I've had to deal with that reflection. And since this is a very close-up of just the helmet, the dome piece, and his little shoulder fins, I mean, it's like I said, it's next to impossible to not get a reflection. But it is what it is. I have this other light right here. This is like the LED desk lamp strip. I don't know what the names of all my lights are, but I kind of know how to use them the best I can. The more I move it forward, you'll see the less light is on the top of this water right here. So when I move it behind the figure, it actually pushes some light on the top right here, and it gives this kind of really cool effect, like waves rippling, the sunshine hitting the waves. This plastic stuff, I bought it on a whim like almost 2 years ago, and it has come in pretty handy for a couple different shots, especially shots with water lines or like still water. Cool thing about this is it comes very smooth, but if you just crumple it up in your hands, you can really give that kind of effect of, like waves breaking and everything. So this is a very simple shot. I just kind of wanted to show you guys real quick. But yeah, man, those reflections are a bitch. But there's nothing I can do. And if Hasbro ever actually makes this figure, it's going to be the exact same scenario. So, not really much you can do. Alright, we got the deep sea armor in its natural habitat, going for an underwater shot right here, as you can tell. This kind of pose and kind of scene is kind of based off of a panel from Iron Man number 218, which is where the suit debuted. I talked a little bit about that in one of my earlier shots in this video. But basically, he's underwater. He comes across the wreckage of the Titanic. He's trying to save this canister from the bottom of the ocean that's near the Titanic. And yeah, this is where he mainly uses this suit. And this issue is really the only time we see him in action in this suit. So of course, I had to do something with this suit being underwater. And I ran into a lot of challenges with this shot. Like I said, this is the first time I've ever done an underwater shot. And I had a couple elements that I knew I could play around with, like the plants here and these little diamonds that I got from Hobby Lobby to kind of simulate bubbles, which I've seen lots of other artists in ACVA do, mainly Simon Hill. He kind of was the pioneer of this type of underwater shot. I'm shooting downwards, looking upwards. This is actually the second setup that I've had this figure in. My first setup I had looking down, but it was causing all kinds of reflections, so I decided to switch it up and shoot basically the opposite way, looking up. That way I could minimize the reflections, and I did, luckily. But I'm working with glass here, if you guys couldn't tell. Basically, he's on top of a piece of glass, kind of touching it right here, and it's kind of giving off the effect that he's floating in midair, or I guess floating in water in this scenario. I got a couple pieces of this blue saran wrap kind of plastic that I got off of Amazon. I think I just looked up blue saran wrap and came across this, so I kind of wanted to simulate, you know, the background of the ocean a little bit. I put a couple lights that are up a little bit higher to kind of simulate the water line, you know, with daylight breaking at the very top of the water and he's going deeper and deeper into the water. So what are the issues I ran into with this shot? Well, first and foremost, this figure is just so delicate that I really didn't want to mess it up. I spoke at the beginning of this video about how Todd wanted me to use gloves to handle these figures, which makes sense because he didn't put any sealer on the paint. So to preserve the paint and the color of the paint, he didn't put sealer on it, so I had to use gloves. Well, you know, with my shots, I'm constantly touching the figures and moving the figures, and me having to wear gloves the whole time is just it's not really something that I'm accustomed to, and it was very difficult, and I had to take off the gloves, and I hope Todd doesn't hate me, but I did have to move the figure a couple times with my fingers. I'm hoping that when I send this back to Todd, Todd can kind of touch it up a little bit with some paint in some areas, because it did kind of get a little damaged in transit. You know, the first headpiece actually broke in transit, and the plastic bag was stuck to this figure, and it caused some paint discrepancies across it. But overall, it held up pretty well. But this figure is very delicate, and I just didn't really want to move it that much. And this is a very involved shot. You know, I'm working with glass. I've got all these lights. I have to make sure that this figure is in contact with the glass. I have to make sure not to touch these shoulder parts. This glass piece doesn't really attach itself to the back of the head. The head doesn't actually pose in this position. I had to use a tiny, tiny bit of tack to get his head attached to the back of the suit there. And I didn't even want to do that. I really didn't even want to do that. So the figure is just a little too delicate for me to really go all out with a shot like this. But like I said, I do think I got the shot. What are some other challenges I had? The reflections, that was a challenge. These little bubbles, trying to get these placed in strategic areas to make it actually look like, you know, that's where bubbles would be forming with the figure underwater. And plus he's in a suit, you know, so I was trying to use every trick in my book, but like I said, this is the first time I've ever done an underwater shot. And then I think the biggest issue I had overall was just the glass itself, man. With me laying this figure on top of the glass and with the paint not being sealed, it was actually transferring tiny bits of paint onto the glass, which kind of affected the shot. You can kind of see a little bit in this area. You know, with my first shot, when I tried from the first angle, I had the same issue, and I was able to actually wipe the paint off of the glass. So I'm not worried about the glass. I'm just really worried about this figure, man. That's what it really all comes down to. I just don't want to mess this figure up at the cost of getting a shot. So like I said, I got the shot the best I could with the least amount of damage on the figure, and I think I'm just gonna call it after this one, guys. This is it's just too delicate a figure, and I really don't want to ruin Todd's work here, because I know the more I handle this thing, the more the chances something is gonna happen. You know, my first shot, I was removing the glass, and this thing just popped right off and kind of rolled away, and I'm talking about the helmet. So I just really don't want anything to get messed up, man. So I'm calling it quits. I think I got the shot, but let me show you an alternate angle really quickly. Alright, to wrap everything up, we can see a little bit more of the setup, the outline of the glass right here. Got the little diamonds, or these little beads I got from Hobby Lobby, just kind of strategically placed throughout the setup to kind of simulate bubbles in the water. Two Yu-Gi-Oh tins holding up this large piece of glass. I get comments all the time about the Yu-Gi-Oh tins. No, I do not play Yu-Gi-Oh. They're just actually really good tools for ACBA, and you can put stuff on top of them, weigh stuff down. There's cards in them, they're heavy. So unfortunately I have retired from dueling, so you will not be able to duel me. But yeah, we got the figure on top of the glass, a couple plants in the back just to add a little extra element to it. I did put this plastic on the bottom right here. I thought to myself, maybe this might give me some cool effect that I've never seen before in a shot, and it didn't, unfortunately, but I tried. I did my best. Like I said, I have the plastic on the wall back here as well, and that's pretty much the shot, man. You know, there was a lot that went into the shot, and I did encounter a lot of issues. One thing I didn't mention was at the very top of this glass dome, this is actual glass too. I think Todd said he got these pieces from China. I don't know what they're specifically used for, but you know, they work pretty well for the bubble on the top of his suit. But there's like a little dimple on this bubble, and I kind of had to arrange the shot in a certain way because if I had his face looking through this little bubble, it distorted his mask. So it was kind of like a magnifier. It would magnify his eye or magnify his forehead, and it just looked really weird. You can kind of see it in the final shot, but I had to rearrange it. So lots of different little things that, you know, I set up and I wasn't really prepared for, and kind of had to you know, adjust some things on the fly. But I think overall I'm happy with the end shot. Just once again, I want to thank Rectangular. You guys can check out his channel below. If you're in the Marvel Legends community or the ACBA community, you probably already know who Todd, aka Rectangular, is. He does all the spoiler videos for the new figures that are coming out, custom tutorials, and just Marvel Legends videos. I think he's very well known in the community, and if you don't, you should definitely check out his channel because he is like one of the main guys that provides news for the community. And you know, he also does, like I said, the leaks from his unspecified source of the Hasbro Marvel Legends drops, and he's usually like 95% correct on these leaks. So you should definitely check him out. And he actually did two reviews of these customs if you want to see them more in depth, see what pieces he used to make these figures happen, see if maybe it's something that you yourself can put together. And thanks, Todd, for lending me these figures, and I'm sorry I couldn't do more shots with them. I don't know, man, they're just too delicate. I had to weigh like the possibility of damaging one of the figures and getting a cooler shot, or just playing it safe and getting, you know, the basic underwater shot that I could, and then just call it quits. And that's what I went with here, just because these aren't my figures, and I just really didn't want to damage them. That was the main thing. So, but overall, I had a really fun time. You know, those first initial 3 shots I had a blast doing. You know, this figure, as much as I hate to say it, it's not really meant for a shot kind of like this. It's mainly meant to be stood up in the armory, or, you know, more simpler shots. When you start putting them in all these crazy positions, you start, you know, getting yourself into trouble in places that you don't want to go, and your chances of breaking the figure or messing the figure up increase exponentially. So let's check out the shot, and thanks again, guys.